that continues to favorably impact millions of lives every day.
SETI's results for 2018 proves our effectiveness as a development partner, placing people at the center of our work and leveraging partnerships and cooperation to transform policy imperatives into action. With an eye on the rapidly changing global context, SETI is innovating to constructively address the emerging challenges and opportunities for the region. As part of our competitiveness program, SETI is designing precise tools to assess assets and capabilities in the productive sector to determine paths towards higher value goods and services. As our flagship program for partnerships, the Americas Competitiveness Exchange on Innovation and Entrepreneurship, the OAS, will continue to leverage good practices and the power of networks to increase trade and investment in the region.
For us, the role of the OAS is very important, connecting countries, connecting governments and private sector, and letting us know what other countries are doing it and how we can replicate that in our countries to enhance development.
For me, who has come here to look at how can we develop our own ecosystem, our own innovation hubs, our own accelerators, I think seeing this, touching, feeling it, seeing the transformation, seeing how quickly you made it happen is a testament to what is possible. So I believe all of us leave here stronger than ever.
The Working Group of Experts on Subnational Competitiveness, the GTEX, is our gateway program to promote local economic competitiveness policies alongside municipal and state-level governments, together with the private sector and academia.
Este tipo de reuniones te sirven para darte cuenta de todo lo que se está viviendo en América Latina sobre los temas de competitividad. Y hoy justamente en este sector estamos viendo sobre todo los temas de innovación tecnológica, pues que si hablamos de competitividad tenemos que hablar de tecnología. Y me está ayudando mucho para abrir el panorama de ver lo que están haciendo otras ciudades y lo que podemos llegar a aplicar también nosotros en México.
The Hub on the Transfer and Commercialization of Technology is strengthening national innovation ecosystems by training budding entrepreneurs to take promising products and services from idea to market.
Porque es importante que estemos juntos en esto, porque la región tiene que estar unida y me parece que hay mucho conocimiento en la región que todavía no está explotado comercialmente como podría ser, y esta es la mejor manera de hacerlo.
Tenemos la proyección de cada año generar y compartir nuevas experiencias entre aquellos que contribuyen a la innovación. Queremos cambiar el cómo lo hemos estado haciendo en Latinoamérica. Queremos generar la unión de los países, queremos colaborar.
Our virtual platform on technology foresight, Prospecta Americas, will support OAS member states in identifying and mapping future trends and technological development of critical importance for the Americas.
Este esfuerzo, el cual viene siendo apoyado por la Organización de los Estados Americanos, nos permitirá tener una gran información para poder mapear estas iniciativas de innovación y poder que ellas contribuyan al crecimiento económico, a la competitividad y al bienestar de nuestras naciones.
Como bien sabemos, nos encontramos ya en la cuarta revolución industrial, la que está cambiando rápidamente la forma en que se hace negocios, se produce, se consume y se genera bienestar y entretenimiento en el mundo. Es la mayor amenaza, tal vez la mejor oportunidad que tenemos en nuestras naciones.
The Inter-American Teacher Education Network, the I-10, is working to improve the quality of teachers with an emphasis on science, technology, engineering, and mathematics education. In 2019, the I-10 launched the first STEM Teacher Fellowship of the Americas. The Energy and Climate Partnership of the Americas, ECPA, is working with governments in the Caribbean to advance electric mobility and clean transport as the sub-region pursues energy independence. Under our Integrated Water Resource Management Program, SETI is responding to the demand for platforms and applications that capture and disseminate real-time information. This includes the expansion of Costa Rica's Plataforma Interactiva de Aplicación del Clima Tropical to the rest of Central America to help build resilient agriculture. The Inter-American Committee on Ports is building human and institutional capacity through public-private partnerships to address port modernization, logistics, and security. CooperaNet, SETI's multi-stakeholder platform for cooperation and partnerships, is being relaunched in 2019, responding to member states' call for a more robust hub for cooperation. As more consumers begin or end their shopping process online, SETI has entered into a partnership with the private sector to digitize millions of micro, small, and medium enterprises across the region.
Las buenas noticias es que sabemos por qué están fracasando, porque no son visibles. Y el hecho de que ahora lo puedan ser, haciéndolo ellas mismas, no solamente rompemos las tres barreras del tiempo, conocimiento y dinero, sino que les permitimos tener éxito y dejar de fracasar a los porcentajes que lo hacen ahora.
Es una herramienta que sin duda acerca a las MIPYMES hacia la demanda que hoy está migrando a Internet, y con eso pretendemos mejorar las ventas y el posicionamiento de las empresas pequeñas.
As we look to the future, the Executive Secretariat for Integral Development will continue to leverage cooperation and partnerships to expand our reach, proving that together we are much more than the sum of our 34 member states.
Me and my kids have been there for over an year right now. And children are friends. It doesn't matter where they come from.
nosotros estamos en una zona netamente selvática. La línea de adyacencia va desde el norte hasta el sur, va desde Modesto Méndez hasta Aguas Turbias, tanto en el norte como en el sur. Esta línea tiene 215 kilómetros de extensión.
De allí vino él, se buscó creo con los de la OEA y de allí vino el proyecto para acá, para Judá. Y fue que lo dieron el terreno y lo dieron todo lo que era mano de obra y el material para hacer las casas que están ahorita. Y por ese motivo estamos aquí viviendo todavía.
La misión continúa trabajando en la implementación de medidas de fomento de la confianza mientras se aguarda el resultado del reclamo que está atendiendo la Corte Internacional de Justicia por la disputa marítima, territorial e insular. Nuestra oficina en la zona de adyacencia realiza verificaciones a solicitud de ambos gobiernos, facilita reuniones y patrullajes conjuntos entre las Fuerzas Armadas y promueve una cultura de paz y cooperación entre las comunidades locales.
Children will be children. And they have harmony. They don't see each other as a different country, but they see each other that they're growing together.
Hoy, esta organización es el guardián regional en defensa de la democracia, la libertad y los derechos humanos. Los países se han comprometido con estos valores a través de instrumentos legales como la Carta Democrática Interamericana, la Convención Americana de Derechos Humanos y todas las demás convenciones interamericanas. Nuestro trabajo es mantener los más altos estándares. Debemos ser objetivos, analizar los hechos, denunciar cuando veamos corrupción, inequidad o amenazas a la libertad. En esos casos no podemos ser neutrales.
than 100 years since the inauguration of this building, the OAS headquarters, our institution still brings together the peoples of the Americas to address our responsibilities as a partnership of nations. As we look to the future, our work must also focus on the construction of a positive agenda that continues to favorably impact millions of lives every day.
De allí vino él, se buscó creo con los de la OEA y de allí vino el proyecto para acá, para Judá. Y fue que lo dieron el terreno y lo dieron todo que era mano de obra y el material para hacer las casas que están ahorita. Y por ese motivo estamos aquí viviendo todavía.
La misión continúa trabajando en la implementación de medidas de fomento de la confianza mientras aguarda el resultado del reclamo que está atendiendo la Corte Internacional de Justicia por la disputa marítima, territorial e insular. Nuestra oficina en la zona de adyacencia realiza verificaciones a solicitud de ambos gobiernos, facilita reuniones y patrullajes conjuntos entre las Fuerzas Armadas y promueve una cultura de paz y cooperación entre las comunidades locales.
Children will be children and they have harmony. They don't see each other as a different country, but they see each other that they're growing together.
Hoy, esta organización es el guardián regional en defensa de la democracia, la libertad y los derechos humanos. Los países se han comprometido con estos valores a través de instrumentos legales como la Carta Democrática Interamericana, la Convención Americana de Derechos Humanos y todas las demás convenciones interamericanas. Nuestro trabajo es mantener los más altos estándares. Debemos ser objetivos, analizar los hechos, denunciar cuando veamos corrupción, inequidad o amenazas a la libertad. En esos casos, no podemos ser neutrales.
More than 100 years since the inauguration of this building, the OAS headquarters, our institution still brings together the peoples of the Americas to address our responsibilities as a partnership of nations. As we look to the future, our work must also focus on the construction of a positive agenda that continues to favorably impact millions of lives every day.
SETI's results for 2018 proves our effectiveness as a development partner, placing people at the center of our work and leveraging partnerships and cooperation to transform policy imperatives into action. With an eye on the rapidly changing global context, SETI is innovating to constructively address the emerging challenges and opportunities for the region. As part of our competitiveness program, SETI is designing precise tools to assess assets and capabilities in the productive sector to determine paths towards higher value goods and services. As our flagship program for partnerships, the Americas Competitiveness Exchange on Innovation and Entrepreneurship, the OAS, will continue to leverage good practices and the power of networks to increase trade and investment in the region.
For us, the role of the OAS is very important, connecting countries, connecting governments and private sector, and letting us know what other countries are doing it and how we can replicate that in our countries to enhance development.
For me, who has come here to look at how can we develop our own ecosystem our own innovation hubs, our own accelerators. I think seeing this, touching, feeling it, seeing the transformation, seeing how quickly you made it happen is a testament to what is possible. So I believe all of us leave here stronger than ever.
The Working Group of Experts on Subnational Competitiveness, the GTEX, is our gateway program to promote local economic competitiveness policies alongside municipal and state-level governments, together with the private sector and academia.
Este tipo de reuniones te sirven para darte cuenta de todo lo que se está viviendo en América Latina sobre los temas de competitividad. Y hoy justamente en este sector estamos viendo sobre todo los temas de innovación tecnológica, pues que si hablamos de competitividad tenemos que hablar de tecnología. Y me está ayudando mucho para ver el panorama de ver lo que están haciendo otras ciudades y lo que podemos llegar a aplicar también nosotros en México.
The Hub on the Transfer and Commercialization of Technology is strengthening national innovation ecosystems by training budding entrepreneurs to take promising products and services from idea to market.
Porque es importante que estemos juntos en esto, porque la región tiene que estar unida y me parece que hay mucho conocimiento en la región que todavía no está explotado comercialmente como podría ser, y esta es la mejor manera de hacerlo.
Tenemos la proyección de cada año generar y compartir nuevas experiencias entre aquellos que contribuyen a la innovación. Queremos cambiar el cómo lo hemos estado haciendo en Latinoamérica. Queremos generar la unión de los países. Queremos colaborar.
Our virtual platform on technology foresight, Prospecta Americas, will support OAS member states in identifying and mapping future trends and technological development.
Good morning, everyone. We are wrapping up our sound and visual testing, and I can confirm that we do have Antigua and Barbuda, Argentina, Bahamas, Belize, Brazil, Canada, Chile, Costa Rica, Dominica, Ecuador, El Salvador, United States, Grenada, Guatemala, Guyana, Honduras, Jamaica, Mexico, Nicaragua, Panama, Paraguay, Peru, Dominican Republic, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, St. Lucia, Suriname, Trinidad and Tobago, Uruguay, and Venezuela with their audio and video tested. We can confirm we have quorum. Is anyone still pending? Ambassador of Spain and Ambassador Desmond, please let us continue with the testing of their audio and video, and we will continue.
Se escucha, pero no seguimos sin verla.
Seguramente tendría que salir de aquí, ¿no? De esta aplicación. Sí, sale ahí. Pues no sé. Sí, sí. A ver. El teléfono móvil sigue a quitar mi imagen, entonces.
Good morning, Ambassador Edmond.
Hi. Good morning.
Perfect. We can see you and we can hear you.
You can see me, can you hear me, right?
Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you.
Ambassador de la Pledge, good morning.
Good morning. Buenos días a todos.
Buenos días. Perfecto.
Y un saludo, mi querida María, secretario general adjunto. Gracias por la prueba.
Muchas gracias. Señor Paredes, de Colombia, buenos días.
Sí, muy buenos días a todos.
Perfecto, lo escuchamos y lo vemos muy bien.
Gracias.
Gracias. Listo, embajadora, ya no tenemos más nadie.
Ambassador, we have concluded testing. Very well. Good morning. Distinguished permanent representatives and observers, delegates, Secretary General, Assistant Secretary General, and staff of the General Secretariat. Having verified the quorum by the Secretariat, I have the honor of declaring this regular meeting of the Permanent Council open. Before considering the matters contained in the draft order of business, I would first like to express our deepest condolences to the delegation of Guatemala and the government and the people of that member state on the passing of Ambassador Jorge Luis Zelaya Coronado, former Assistant Secretary General of our organization from 1975 to 1980. Ambassador Zelaya Coronado was a recognized Guatemalan university professor, politician, and diplomat whose professional career took place in the midst of some of the most important events in the recent history of his native Guatemala and the region. Prior to assuming the post of Assistant Secretary General, Ambassador Zelaya Coronado was Guatemala, permanent representative to the OAS and ambassador to the White House. He participated in the preparation of the American Convention on Human Rights and was a fundamental part of the Peace Commission that brought an end to the conflict between El Salvador and Honduras. I would also like to express our condolences to the delegation of Argentina and of the people of that member state on the sad passing of the former President Carlos Saúl Menem on Sunday, February 14th. Former President Menem presided over the government of the Republic of Argentina from 1989 to 1999. He was also governor of the province of La Rioja and served in the National Senate. I would ask us all to observe a moment of silence in memory of Ambassador Zelaya Coronado and former President Menem. Thank you very much. Furthermore, I would like to congratulate the government and the people of Grenada on the occasion of the celebration of their national holiday on February 7th, as well as the government and the people of Ecuador for the holding of the first round of presidential elections on that same day, February 7th. Item 1 is the approval of the order of business. Dear colleagues, pursuant to Article 43 of the Rules of Procedure, I submit to the consideration of the Permanent Council the draft order of business contained in document CPOD 2312/21. If there are no comments, we will deem it approved. So carried. Item 2 is the equitable distribution of COVID-19 vaccines. This item on the order of business was requested by the Permanent Mission of Trinidad and Tobago in its capacity as coordinator of CARICOM Regional Group of the OAS member states by means of a note CP-INF 8852/21, as well as the draft resolution under the same name contained in document CP-DOC 5673/21 Rev 2, presented by the Permanent Mission of Trinidad and Tobago in its own name and as well as in the name of Antigua and Barbuda, Bahamas, Barbados, Belize, and Dominica, Grenada, Guyana, Haiti, Honduras, Jamaica, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and Suriname, with the co-sponsorship of the delegations of Argentina, Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Mexico, Nicaragua, Panama, Dominican Republic, and Uruguay. Vaccination against COVID-19 is and will be a priority issue around the world in coming years as countries endeavor to fight and combat the coronavirus pandemic. In this regard, we recognize and appreciate the initiative of CARICOM for bringing to the consideration this momentous issue here at the Permanent Council. That said, I now offer the floor to the distinguished proposing delegations for the introduction of the draft resolution entitled The Equitable Distribution of COVID-19 Vaccines. Let me first recognize the distinguished delegate of Antigua and Barbuda.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I make this statement on behalf of all 14 CARICOM states, Honduras, and other co-sponsors of this resolution, whom you have just named. There can be no doubt whatsoever that the ongoing coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic poses an unprecedented challenge to public health on a global scale. There are confirmed cases in more than 200 countries. As of yesterday, there were 109 million infected cases globally and more than 2,400,000 deaths worldwide. Member states of this organization accounted for more than 48 million cases and over 1,100,000 deaths. In other words, our countries have suffered 45% of the infected cases and 48% of the deaths worldwide. This is almost half the global number of infected cases and nearly half the number of deaths in the world. Madam President, those figures alone should give each of us and all of us every good reason to be gravely troubled about the damaging effects of the COVID-19 pandemic on the health and well-being of our peoples. In many, if not all, our countries, our hospitals are finding it enormously difficult to cope. This is the primary reason why the 14 member states of CARICOM and 8 other sister states of this organization have co-sponsored the resolution that is now before this Permanent Council, calling for a scaling up of the production of vaccines and a rapid and equitable acceleration of their distribution. Over 1 million people in our countries have died. They have died alone, no family with them, no loved one to whom to say goodbye. They have had hurried funerals that left many families emotionally scarred. Unless vaccines are produced and distributed, many more hundreds of thousands will suffer the same fate. Madam President, of the 3 main vaccine-producing companies, one of them has sold most of its early doses only to rich countries where immunization campaigns are now on the way. Poorer countries, including many of our own states, have been almost entirely shut out. As of yesterday, a study done by Duke University here in the United States shows that just 15% of the world's population in wealthy countries have bought 60% of all the available vaccine doses. The inequity of that situation is clear for all to see. Poorer countries are left waiting for adequate supplies of vaccines, and the pandemic is being prolonged with all its devastating effects. The magnitude of the problem is echoing in other international organizations. For instance, today, the Security Council of the United Nations is also considering inequality and inequity in access to the COVID-19 vaccine. Nations all over the world are worried, mindful of the wisdom of Abraham Lincoln, that no country can survive half free and half slave. Nations all over the world. Similarly, the world will not survive if 15% of the world holds for itself 60% of vaccines and 85% of the people must struggle for an equitable share. Madam President, the figures are instructive regarding which countries have performed best in terms of delivering the first dose of any COVID-19 vaccine to a high percentage of their people. Apart from the United Arab Emirates at 53.7% and Israel at 39.6%, the countries that have secured vaccines and been able to give their people at least one dose are Great Britain, 22%, the United States of America, almost 12%, and the countries of the European Union, almost all of which have had sufficient vaccines to inoculate 4% of their population so far. Amongst our member states, the picture is very different. Apart from the United States, Chile ranks highest at 10.2%. Thereafter, only 3 of our member states have managed to inoculate more than 1% of their population. And even so, the inoculated numbers are paltry. The 3 member states are Peru at 3.5%, Canada at 3.25%, and Brazil at 2.41%. None, not one, of our remaining 29 member states have had sufficient vaccines to inoculate more than 0.95% of their people. I think that's worth repeating, Madam Chair, with your permission. Not one of our remaining 29 member states have had sufficient vaccines to inoculate more than 0.95% of their people. The situation is deeply troubling, portending a calamity which threatens the entire world. The contagion has fast extended to the economic sphere. The looming global recession, which UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres warned could be of record dimensions, will pose a threat to developing countries at a time when investing in sustainable development goals is most needed. The Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean had projected a decline in foreign direct investment to Latin America and the Caribbean last year, 2020, by about 50%, 50%. With many economies across the region in a state of prolonged inactivity, the downward investment trend for 2021 is even more precipitous. The year 2022 is unlikely to get any better unless every country gets the virus under control. Developed countries will not escape these harmful economic consequences. A research study sponsored by the United States National Bureau of Economic Research in Massachusetts states that, and I quote it, in monopolizing the supply of vaccines against COVID-19, wealthy nations are threatening more than a humanitarian catastrophe. The resulting economic devastation will hit affluent countries nearly as hard as those in the developing world. The study also points out that even if wealthy countries are fully vaccinated by the middle of this year, and poor countries remain largely shut out, the global economy would suffer losses exceeding $9 trillion, a sum greater than the annual output of Japan and Germany combined. We are truly all in this together. The director of the Pan American Health Organization, Carissa Etienne, has made it clear that to get anywhere near seeing a suppression of the coronavirus at least 70 to 80% of our populations have to be vaccinated. That is about 450 million people in Latin America and the Caribbean, and 360 million people in the United States and Canada. The combined figures mean that we need to inoculate over 800 million people to reach the threshold of between 70 and 80% that gives our countries a level of what is called herd immunity. This is a matter that demands an urgent response from all countries, acting in concert, and particularly from the richest nations. We are bringing this matter to the Permanent Council of the OAS because it is not only a global health emergency, it is a political problem with several urgent dimensions, including global economic decline, massive unemployment, huge expansion in poverty, inability to repay existing debt, degradation of human rights in all countries, threats to the sustainability of democracy in many countries, a large swell in refugees, millions more infected persons, collapse of health systems, and millions more deaths. Madam President, there are other attendant problems. Our colleague, the distinguished ambassador of Honduras, has pointed out that the countries of Central America and the Caribbean, the majority of countries assembled here today, suffer year after year from natural disasters. Many of these countries were still suffering from these disasters when the COVID-19 pandemic descended upon them like the biblical swarm of locusts. They struggled through 2020 with significantly decreased national revenues amid extraordinary expenses to manage the health and economic effects of the pandemic. They are now stretched to the absolute limit. The importance of inoculating a large number of our people before the hurricane season starts in 5 months' time must be emphasized. In bringing this resolution to the Permanent Council, the CARICOM member states, Honduras, and our other co-sponsors consulted widely. He took account of a great number of suggestions, conceding many of our positions in crafting what is now before us. The resolution is not perfect. No resolution ever satisfies all delegations all the time. Indeed, we in CARICOM and Honduras would have liked it to be stronger in many aspects. But we did not want to discard the good because we could not attain the perfect. We believe the resolution before us will serve all our countries very well in the objectives it is trying to achieve. We must recall that 29 of our 34 states have only been able to inoculate a tiny number of their people, less than 1%. I recall your own words, Madam President, spoken on a similar occasion. You said, there is a danger of inequity even in hope. All of us must firmly act against that danger. In commending this resolution to the Council, I hope, Madam President, that we will not have to vote on it, and that in a spirit of cooperation and in our mutual interest, we will adopt it by acclamation. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Sanders, for that presentation. St. Vincent and the Grenadines is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. ¿Me entienden? ¿Me oyen? ¿Me escuchan? Gracias. Chair,
Secretary General, Assistant Secretary General, Excellencies, by leave of the distinguished permanent representative of Trinidad and Tobago, His Excellency Anthony Phillips Spencer, coordinator of the CARICOM Group of Ambassadors, I take the floor to advance some observation on this important draft resolution as laid before the Permanent Council today. I thank the distinguished Sir Ronald Sanders, Permanent Representative of Antigua and Barbuda, for presenting the draft resolution. Chair, the draft resolution considers the disparities and inequities which exist, whether by design and artifice or by accident, between developed and developing countries, between countries in Latin America and the Caribbean on one hand and some others. I will make three references here. Hopefully, by design and artifice or by accident, I will achieve cohesion among them. First, we are only 2.5 weeks away from March 8th, which is celebrated as International Women's Day. The theme which UN Women announced for that day is, I quote, "Women in Leadership, Achieving an Equal Future in a COVID-19 World," end of quote. Second, co-author of the text, Women and Leadership, Madam Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, the first African woman to lead the World Trade Organization, indicated in an interview with CNN's Christiane Amanpour that she would prioritize fair trade and access to COVID-19 vaccines. Specifically, she asked, I quote, "How can trade and the World Trade Organization play a stronger role in bringing solutions to the COVID-19 pandemic, both on the health side, but also on the economic side?" She noted, quote, "For economic recovery, we need trade. And also, in order to solve the public health problems, we also need good trade rules that would allow access and equity for vaccines and therapeutics and diagnostics," end of quote. She emphasized that there is a lot of inequality and that, quote, "women are marginalized." In summary, she posed the crucial question, I quote, "How can we get rules that help us deal with issues of inequality and focused on people," end of quote. Third, I submit two quotations from Peter Drucker, father of management. They are, one, I quote, "The best way to predict the future is to create it," end of quote. Second quote, "The only thing we know about the future is that it will be different," end of quote. Chair, women in many regions of the world are marginalized in various aspects of their lives and in diverse sectors. In the COVID-19 pandemic, a disproportionate number of women are frontline health workers, are teachers, are involved in vaccine production, and generally in low-paid jobs. Rural women also generally find themselves marginalized or excluded entirely from certain areas of life, such as education and access to adequate health and social services. Chair, the pandemic and the current modes of conferring access to vaccines are further threatening the quality of life and the very existence of women. I do not need to emphasize the role that women play in promoting a family's food security, proper nutrition, education, good health, and well-being, especially when they themselves are healthy, educated, and employed. Chair, I do not make this statement to diminish in any way the role or the importance of men. In summary, the inequitable distribution of vaccines hampers productivity and development on the macro level, since at the micro level, key sectors of some populations in developing countries risk not having access to the COVID-19 vaccines. Chair, this imbalance can have such an impact on the world as to perpetuate a vicious cycle of poverty, ill health, persistent poverty, the inability to enjoy life. Inclusion is a matter of social justice. The Charter of the Organization of American States affirms that, I quote, social justice and social security are the basis of lasting peace, end of quote. Whither then the ideals of democracy, peace, and stability, if by the very practice of excluding certain sectors of the population, it persists? Okay. Chair, lest I forget to integrate the three references I made earlier, I do so now. The condition of women, especially now in the face of the pandemic, must be a central consideration in the equitable distribution of the COVID-19 vaccine. This must be considered both across territorial borders and within national borders. The importance of this has been highlighted by UN Women and by the co-authors of the text referenced earlier. Chair, if we are to reduce the impact of the existential threat, which is the COVID-19 disease, we must ensure that there are fair trade practices based not only on developed countries' purchasing power, but also on the needs of developing countries whose purchasing power is less, but who also need to protect their populations, some sectors of which are already suffering from exceptional vulnerabilities. None of us is safe, Chair, unless all of us are safe. It is imperative, therefore, to create the future we want, a healthy future based on equity. Chair, I conclude with a final quotation from Peter Drucker. I do this without any direct reference to the history of Latin America and the Caribbean, as this itself was based on domination and the lopsided distribution of power, which naturally resulted in persistent inequality and inequity. Chair, I quote, "The greatest danger in times of turbulence is not turbulence itself, but to act with yesterday's logic." Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you for those contributions. The Ambassador of Ecuador is recognized. Thank you very much, Chair. I'd like to greet and congratulate the ambassadors Spencer and Sanders for leading the negotiations of this important resolution on behalf of CARICOM. Now, we had asked for the inclusion of some provisions in this resolution. We support wholeheartedly this resolution, and so we would request to be a co-sponsor thereof. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ambassador. Thank you, Ambassador Khativa. We've noted your co-sponsorship, and Ambassador Lynch from Barbados is now recognized.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Good morning, Excellencies. Madam Chair, Barbados joins in commending the Permanent Council for adopting this resolution, even as we underscore the seriousness of the mandates that now fall to this organization as a result. The coronavirus pandemic, which has united the world in suffering and created a universal new norm, cannot now be remedied by nationalistic pursuits in the developed world. Barbados has long held the view that global problems require global solutions. On this basis, we continue to appeal to bilateral partners and pharmaceutical companies to treat COVID-19 vaccines as life-saving public goods. Indeed, Madam Chair, herein lies another truth that Barbados is a champion of universal health care has long known. The free market can never solve a public health crisis. Poorer and smaller countries who have neither the market size nor the capital of developed countries will always be left behind in a global health intervention ruled by profit. Moral and science have come to a rare consensus on the idea that no country is safe until all countries are safe. The limited capacity of countries to blunt COVID-19 infections has seen the birth of new, more transmissible, and potentially more resistant coronavirus variants, many of which were identified in the global south. The continued delay in the deployment of vaccines and the uncontained spread of coronavirus in poorer countries risks the emergence of similar strains and poses a challenge to all in overcoming this pandemic. Indeed, Madam Chair, Barbados finds it difficult to imagine how vaccine production at the level required for a coordinated global response could ever be achieved without new economies of scale through the licensing of patents to global pharmaceutical companies. Barbados takes this opportunity to publicly commend those developed countries for their stated intention to join the COVAX facility, and to the United States in particular for its assertion of leadership to address the multiple impacts of the pandemic on a global scale. This is also a major part of why the CARICOM sponsors of this resolution have taken on board so many of the numerous amendments proposed by our developed partners. Indeed, Barbados is not naive to think that a vaccine alone will return our country to normalcy or the region to normalcy. The severe financial losses from this pandemic have compounded our fiscal debt and shifted critical goalposts for our development and climate objectives. Our creditors and the IFIs should not be naive to this reality either. The irony of this situation, Madam Chair, much like the adverse effects of climate change on small island states, is that while this virus entered the shores of the Caribbean principally via developed countries, because of our dependence on travel and tourism, we are now faced with drastically reduced development revenues. This is in great part as a result of travel restrictions imposed by these very countries. Furthermore, we are compelled to compete with them on even terms to secure the vaccines necessary to fight this sickness. We take this opportunity to appeal to our bilateral partners who have the influence to do so, and to our Secretary General to advocate for structured deferrals of debt payments and the creation of new and additional financing to allow us the space to durably recover from this pandemic. For our part, Barbados would welcome a deeper discussion on this topic in the months ahead at this Permanent Council of the Organization of American States. Madam Chair, Barbados is obliged to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Lynch. Trinidad and Tobago now has the floor. Ambassador Spencer, you are recognized.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Excellencies, Secretary General, Assistant Secretary General. I have the honor now to take the floor for the first of two occasions on which I will speak during this item of on the order of business of this Permanent Council this morning. And on this occasion, it's my pleasure, Madam Chair, to second the call for the adoption of this draft resolution by acclamation made by the most distinguished permanent representative of Antigua and Barbuda in what I must describe as the best expression of the importance of the pursuit of equity in all that we do on behalf of the people of the Americas in his opening remarks. I therefore move now, Madam Chair, that this Permanent Council adopt by acclamation this draft resolution as moved and called for by the distinguished permanent representative of Antigua and Barbuda. I so move, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Spencer. Is there any objection? As there is no objection, we have now adopted by acclamation the equitable distribution of COVID-19 vaccines. We offer the floor to the delegation of Mexico. I'm sorry, the interpreter cannot hear the ambassador of Mexico.
No, perdone, embajadora. Perdone.
Excuse me, ambassador, we cannot hear you. You are on mute, says the Assistant Secretary General. The chair has repeated, you are on mute, ambassador. Ambassador, please release your mic and ask for the floor again, says the technician. Can you hear me? Lovely. Thank you very much, Chair. Mexico celebrates the adoption of this resolution by acclamation, and we reiterate my country's pledge to the objectives and goals of this resolution. It is a necessary message of solidarity at a time that is very complex for the world. Mexico also calls on all countries to distribute equitably the medication that will help us overcome the COVID-19 crisis. We need to find common solutions to these kinds of crises. We also supported the resolution in the UN cooperation to ensure access to medication against COVID-19. This was approved with large backing of the UN members, and it shows that Mexico believes that we must join forces to address the COVID-19 crisis. We have also participated in the debate with regard to equitable distribution of COVID-19 vaccines in the Council of the UN, where a debate took place on the equitable distribution. And so we see that this is affecting so many people. We must reverse the injustice that is happening, because this will assure humankind's future. Mexico encourages the international community to not establish mechanisms that would prevent expedited distribution of the vaccinations. We need supply chains so that we can have equitable, efficient, fair and timely distribution of medications and medical equipment so that we can address effectively this pandemic, which surely will be going on for some time. Thank you. Thank you, Ambassador Baños. The United States is recognized.
Gracias, señor Presidente.
Thank you, Chair.
Supports the effective and equitable distribution of vaccines, understanding that development of vaccines is not enough if they are not effectively distributed. As you know, the Biden-Harris administration is committed to rejoining the World Health Organization and to supporting the COVAX, the COVAX facility. The administration has also committed to support the COVID-19 health and humanitarian response and advance global health and health security. We thank Trinidad and Tobago and the CARICOM community for raising the important issue of COVID-19 immunization. We understand the gravity of the situation in our region and the need for swift action. I assure you the United States understands the sense of urgency this topic requires. We are pleased with CARICOM's flexibility on the drafting of the resolution. We found the timeline to be a bit challenging, given our need to consider the text of the resolution and allow for sufficient consultation with our experts, of which we have very, very many, unfortunately. Well, of which we have very, very many. The version we are discussing today, however, is acceptable to the United States, and we are pleased to join the consensus on this important resolution. Pleased to see that it is adopted, has been adopted by acclamation, and thank you very much for all of the effort that has gone into this.
I thank the delegation of the United States. I have on my list now the delegation of Barbados. No, excuse me, that was a mistake. So now we have Brazil. Ambassador Simas is recognized. Thank you very much, Chair. Secretary General. Initially, I'd like to thank CARICOM and especially Trinidad and Tobago and the sponsors of this draft resolution. This is an issue that is very important for the entire region at this time. I am extremely satisfied that this was approved by acclamation. I also want to congratulate for its leadership or his leadership, Ambassador Spencer, because Brazil also feels very strongly about this and the provisions in the resolution. We are very happy about how this turned out after our consultations. It was a participatory process. We also want to highlight the importance of the resolution and the fact that it has recognized initiatives taken regionally and multilaterally in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic, also giving the necessary coherence with other documents already adopted. We also believe it's important that we have recognized the general principles that exist in the World Health Organization to give fair and equitable access to medications and medical equipment to fight COVID-19. We see that throughout the negotiations of the draft resolution, there have been references to other important aspects of fora that have discussed COVID-19 and how to fight it. And we cannot ignore these. For example, aspects like logistics, supply, demand, other issues. We believe the resolution is important in the sense that it has included appropriate language with regard to intellectual property rights, and it has taken into account the differences in production capacities that exist. We also would like to state for the record that it has been important to keep in the provisions that have to do with IPR, intellectual property rights, trade, and also flexibility that we saw in the Doha round. And this was suggested by Brazil during our consultations. I wanted to avail myself of this occasion, Chair, to also share information with you about the vaccination campaign that's ongoing in Brazil. In December, the National Office of Immunization against COVID-19 taken into account our national vaccination system or program that already exists and is the largest in the world. It has 28,000 clinics for immunization throughout Brazil. Well, as of January 18, and data from PAHO, Brazil is number 2 with regard to doses that have been injected. However, and we all are facing difficulties, so we have immunized 12.25% of our population. And we have 12 million doses that have been distributed. Brazil is a very large country. This means that we've exhausted local production supply. However, this is fundamental for a national response to the pandemic. The Brazilian laboratory signed an agreement with multinational pharmaceutical companies to transfer technology and also to acquire the pharmaceutical inputs. This will allow us to locally produce 3 different vaccinations: AstraZeneca, Sinovac, from Sao Paulo, and Sputnik 5. These will be produced by a laboratory called New Química. And without, of course, changing any of the characteristics of these vaccinations, with this, will be able to vaccinate 170 million Brazilians in keeping with our national vaccination plan. We have identified priority groups under this program, and we believe that the Inter-American system with the specialized groups on this matter will be playing a very important role, and we support member states' efforts to address the crisis. I would like to recognize and thank once again PAHO for all of its work, also the support of the United States to be able to address the pandemic, and also other countries that are participating in the COVAX mechanism to be able to broaden access with equity. Finally, I'd like to conclude by saying that we need to support the principle of solidarity. This is a fundamental value that we all share. And we see that we all hold this value dear. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador Simas. Let me now recognize the Ambassador of Honduras, Ambassador Cordero. Good morning, Madam Chair, Secretary General, Assistant Secretary General, colleagues all. I would like to thank Anthony Philip Spencer, the ambassador, and Ronald Sanders for their leadership in negotiating this draft resolution on the equitable distribution of a COVID-19 vaccine, in which my country is proud to have been a co-sponsor. As we all know, access and universal coverage to health care mean that all individuals have access without any sort of discrimination to comprehensive and appropriate, timely, and quality health care services based on their needs. The world in recent months has been experiencing one of the worst crises in the history of humanity, with the social and economic crises that have been aggravated by the COVID-19 pandemic. In addition to that, of course, we see in many of our countries the impact of climate change. That is why for Honduras it is of the utmost importance to take all possible measures to avoid the propagation of COVID-19 in developing countries. As such, the resolution approved today indicates and suggests that we should all be in a position to do so. We are cognizant that the distribution of a COVID-19 vaccine around the globe is limited, and we are deeply concerned that the vaccine not be distributed equitably or in a timely fashion, and that it is being concentrated more in developed countries. This creates a risk that the ongoing pandemic will continue, therefore endangering all countries and all peoples, specifically those of Latin America and the Caribbean. We must ensure that our people are vaccinated in the majority. That said, I would also like to recognize the World Health Organization and the Pan American Health Organization for the shipment of the first batch of vaccines, known as COVAX, which we expect to receive at the end of February. Madam Chair, I would like to issue a call to the permanent observers and the member states to help ensure the equitable distribution of vaccines across the globe, and particularly in our hemisphere. The inequitable distribution of vaccines is dangerous to all, and certainly it is a moral failure that will lead, of course, to catastrophic both health and economic impacts. Only together will we succeed. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Ambassador Cordero. I recognize Ambassador Fiallo, Dominican Republic. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Firstly, the Dominican Republic would like to thank Trinidad and Tobago for having taken the initiative to present this important resolution to us, that through firm solidarity with our organization is issuing a call to the world, and particularly the manufacturers of the vaccines, developed countries, international organizations, and the international lending organizations, and PAHO, among others, with a view toward ensuring that COVID-19 are distributed equitably. The Dominican Republic is a co-sponsor of this resolution and shares wholeheartedly the vision it set forth therein, in that any actions that lead to inequitable and unfair distributions is unacceptable and generates a risk to the public health and the well-being of the people of Latin America and the Caribbean, and is a violation of the principle of international solidarity. Colleagues, last Monday, we launched our vaccine program in the Dominican Republic, seeking in 2021 to vaccinate 7.8 people over the age of 18. We will need 15.6 million doses for that purpose. The government of the Dominican Republic is working tirelessly to secure these vaccines, working within the context of this plan, the fundamental pillars, of course, are national equity, legitimacy, transparency, and honesty. We are seeking to reduce mortality associated with COVID-19, reducing the contagion and severe illness, as well as the risk of contagion. The Dominican Republic and its government takes with note that all members of the organization are redoubling their efforts to bring the vaccine to their people. However, unless this is done in a non-discriminatory and equitable fashion, the efforts that I've just mentioned, particularly those of developed countries, will be hard hit. Therefore, the Dominican Republic joins the voices in support of this resolution. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you. I now recognize Guatemala. Ambassador, you have the floor. Guatemala appreciates and thanks the chair for introducing this topic of such vital importance at this meeting of the Permanent Council, and acknowledges the leadership of Trinidad and Tobago in the process of negotiating the draft resolution presented by CARICOM on the equitable distribution of COVID-19 vaccines, which my country is honored to co-sponsor, and recognizes that the text has been enriched by the contributions of the member states that have supported it by acclamation today. Recognizing that the right to health is a universal right, it is of the utmost importance in the context of the COVID-19 crisis that all populations have access to the vaccine against COVID-19. My country has reiterated here and in other fora its concern about the adverse impact of COVID-19 on our people, particularly an increment in poverty, extreme poverty, endangered nutrition and food security, as is recognized in this resolution and has been recognized by colleagues. Once again, this council is issuing a call to solidarity, to the recognition that the only way to overcome the second wave of COVID-19 is for states to take a shared approach to sustainable development and sustainability across the region. We recognize the challenge posed by responding to the pressing need to ensure equitable access and the manufacturing of vaccines to satisfy the demand, and recognize the importance of solidarity, as has been said today, in that process, so that the process can and access to vaccines can be fair, equitable, and transparent. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Guatemala has focused its foreign policy on seeking strategic alliances within the context of the COVID-19 pandemic, with a view toward economic recovery and access to healthcare solutions. We are therefore keenly interested in solutions, including the vaccine, and are very much interested in being a major player in the region in terms of combating the virus. Dr. Alejandro Abate has expressed an interest in working hand in hand with the COVAX program. In October of last year, the agreement was confirmed, working hand in hand, therefore, between our country and PAHO. President Yamate has indicated through the COVAX mechanism of the sending and shipment to Guatemala of over 800,000 vaccines. This is the first batch of AstraZeneca vaccines produced in India that will be arriving, and we expect to receive them between the middle of February and the end of the month, with a second shipment arriving subsequently based on availability, of course, from the manufacturers. Madam Chair, our country appreciates the efforts of PAHO and all the international institutions, mechanisms, and donor countries that have worked to ensure that states can have access to an effective vaccine in a timely fashion. We reiterate the willingness of Guatemala to work as a center for the distribution of vaccines for the countries of Central America, observing that no country will be safe until we all are. Thank you. Thank you, Ambassador Claverin. I now recognize Canada.
Embajador Atze.
Muchísimas gracias, señora Presidente.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, everyone.
First, by thanking CARICOM, and by thanking in particular the chair of CARICOM, His Excellency Anthony Philip Spencer, Ambassador of Trinidad and Tobago, and Ambassador Sir Ronald Sanders, Antigua and Barbuda, for their hard work in developing the resolution on this important issue that was adopted this morning. I must say I couldn't help but be quite struck by the examples that Sir Ronald Sanders was giving this morning of the human impact of this epidemic and the consequences that this has had for all of us in the Americas in many different ways. For Canada, equitable, timely, and affordable access to vaccines, therapies, and diagnostics is critical for all of us if we are to control and to end this pandemic together. The COVID-19 pandemic is a global threat. It does not recognize borders, and it will only be overcome through coordinated global action. Canada is committed to a robust global effort to stop COVID-19 and to address its devastating health, social, economic, and security impacts on people around the world. Canada also remains committed to ensuring that COVAX can deliver on its objective of equitable access, and I hope we can leverage the Organization of American States to bolster support for multilateral efforts to ensure access to COVID-19 vaccines for all. Canada has supported Gavi since day one to set up, to garner support for, and to operationalize COVAX. Canada was the first, and in fact so far the only, donor to allocate dedicated funding to COVAX for the distribution and delivery of vaccines to low and to lower middle income countries. Getting through this pandemic will take a collective and constructive effort to build broad alliances in the pursuit of common objectives. À mesure que la pandémie évolue, nous devons également continuer.
Ladies and gentlemen, we understand that we need to continue to work hand in hand to grapple with this situation, seeking vaccines that are effective and working to modify and adjust the vaccines to ensure that they are equally effective against the different variants. We need to nonetheless work hand in hand with all of you to continue to ensure safe, effective, and affordable access to the people across the region. I appreciate the work of CARICOM and the efforts that they have undertaken in this regard. Canada is deeply committed to working in conjunction with the countries across the region in the response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I believe we may have lost the chair. Ambassador Mendez, you are muted. Perhaps we could give the floor to the Vice Chair. to stand in for the chair while we await her return. The chair appears to have returned. We are waiting for her to appear on screen. One moment.
Presidenta, si puede hacer release de mic y pedir la palabra nuevamente, a ver si puede entrar en pantalla.
¿Se desconectó nuevamente, Fernando?
Sí, así es. Estaba en pantalla, pero se fue.
Le asignamos un técnico a la presidenta, por favor, y le da la palabra al vicepresidente para que
Can we please assign a technician? Unfortunately, the vice chair has also disappeared from the screen. Ambassador Raimundi, if you could request the floor to continue with you as vice chair. Ambassador Raimundi is also not currently appearing on the list.
Ahí tenemos a la presidenta nuevamente, a ver si ahora puede entrar en pantalla. Ahí la vemos y la escuchamos.
We now have the president back. My deepest apologies, states the chair. I believe I may have lost track. Ambassador Mendez, could you please assist me? I believe that the next delegation would be Venezuela. Venezuela, please, you have the floor. Secretary General, Assistant Secretary General, ladies and gentlemen, the delegation of Venezuela would like to thank the delegations of CARICOM for this proposal and the countries, member states that have supported it. We also are concerned by the lack of equitable access to the vaccine and believe that anything that we can do to overcome this patent injustice is warranted, particularly in light of the devastating impact of the current pandemic on our countries and economies. Venezuela, of course, the impact would be hard-pressed to be worse. Our healthcare system has collapsed completely, and we understand clearly that any effort that is possible should be taken to support Venezuela, particularly in grappling with the pandemic. Toward this end, we have created a working roundtable with PAHO, the medical organizations, universities, and the government of Nicolas Maduro, seeking to secure funds so that we can be part of the COVAX program. Venezuela not only needs assistance in accessing the vaccine, but also we need to build a system of chilling these vaccines, a system that will enable us to distribute the vaccines. We are endeavoring to cover all Venezuelans, both inside and outside of our territory. We are perfectly cognizant, Madam Chair, of the importance of this effort and will continue to support everything that is being done worldwide to the benefit of all and to endeavor to support the principles of social justice that must take priority. Thank you, Madam Chair. From the interpreter, sounded origin was very low and deficient. We've done our best. I had understood that Argentina had requested the floor, but let me now indeed recognize the ambassador of Argentina. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. My greetings to the authorities, ambassadors, and representatives present. First and foremost, Argentina celebrates the consensus on this draft, on this proposed resolution that was approved by acclamation. I believe that this is a cry from our region on behalf of life and of health. In some cases, we focus often on the specific types of supplies, and we have done so in the past. But today, the call is for vaccination. And this responds to another need, and that has to do with the financing of development. To grapple with the economic paralysis, the levels of indebtedness of so many of our countries. So it is a call to arms and a call to action in that regard as well. And I celebrate indeed that call. I am also particularly pleased by this approval because I feared that some requests for amendments or changes would be heeded and that the technical and financial criteria would take precedence over the right to life. And therefore, again, my joy is redoubled in seeing that this has not indeed been the case. The question, therefore, is what comes first? Healthcare, life, and second, money. First is solidarity. Not believing that just because we come from a wealthy state, we should prevail over others. Clearly, this resolution is a response to the pandemic, but it is also an ethical message, a policy statement, a political statement. The other major value that is at stake is the prevalence of collective needs over private needs. And this involves the concept of a global public good. And what is that? That is something that prevails over any private interest, any market interest, no matter how powerful. Those private interests cannot be above the health and the well-being of people, of humankind. Back in September, at the UN General Assembly, Pope Francis and our president were referring back then to the global public good. And Argentina adopted an ethical approach to vaccination, an extraordinary plan. That is very much present in our country. Argentine labs working with international labs have sought to produce some of the links in the chain of production of vaccines. I believe that this resolution also sends a potent message in support of the concept of multilateralism. Our president and I myself, as someone steeped in international relations and the law, we have always believed in multilateralism. Multilateralism has always existed so that stronger states could not impose their will on less powerful states. As the world has evolved, what we see is that the areas of technological development across the globe, research in major laboratories, if we bring together and add up all of the resources, there's certainly much more that's been invested there in the developed and powerful countries than the non-powerful countries. Therefore, the challenge is for multilateralism to prevail despite the pressures of these major companies that have acquired the research and development and have greater means in the private companies that go beyond the ability and the means of the nation states themselves. And the subjugation of those interests to the public interest in this resolution is what I hail. What happens in terms of technological innovation when we have a virus that is mutating? The labs, no matter how much they have invested, have not been able to effectively keep pace with the spread of the virus. And so if I have to ask myself, what do I do with these individuals who are ill? As Ambassador Sanders had said, many of them have passed away alone in remote locations or are unable to socially distance. What do I do? Do I quote intellectual property rights to them? No, I must care for them, and it is there that we must focus on the neediest of all. And I'm not talking about breaking rules. I'm talking about the public interest, the public good. That is above and comes first before all other rules. And it is respecting the rule of life first that this draft resolution that we have just approved by acclamation reflects. I remember when Mandela, then Brazil and India and others called for waivers so labs could make available the cocktail to combat the scourge of age. And that is why today all of our international organizations are participating to be sure and to be certain that in this case, the economic interests of the manufacturers do not prevail. Furthermore, any country, no matter how well vaccinated its people are, will continue to be in danger unless the vaccine is available to all. And this is why it is urgent. This is why speed is of the utmost importance. And that is why, Madam Chair, we have supported and co-sponsored and wholeheartedly approve of this message. Thank you, Ambassador. Our next speaker on the list is the Ambassador of Uruguay.
I was listening to Carlos very attentively. It's as if the debate is now getting more interesting, in my opinion. If COVID brought us anything, it showed us what our global priorities are. And the first priority is life, and preserve life as we can. That's why we are co-sponsoring this resolution, and very enthusiastically. And I think that this is intelligent and prudent, that we are calling upon all of us to be show solidarity. And I saw that in the UN Security Council, there is also the same kind of resolution, and they mentioned the issue that this is, well, that it's a moral issue. But I don't think it's a moral issue. I think it is merely a political issue. And political issues need to be resolved in fora where we have political jurisdiction. We've spoken today about multilateralism. Careful. If COVID doesn't work out, and if we can't overcome it, then multilateralism may not survive. So multilateralism is there to bring together the will of states and peoples in order to pursue common good. And if reality overcomes us, then we're in a real problem. I think that the substance of this debate means that we have to be very sincere and frank. And what we've done with COVAX is to be applauded. But let's face it, many countries that speak here and in other fora, well, that they're also speaking directly with pharmaceutical companies. And I'm not trying to accuse anyone of anything. I'm not pointing a finger at anyone. Each country does what it believes is the best for its people. And here we spoke about the fact that 29 of the 34 countries do have vaccination campaigns. Uruguay has not begun vaccinating its people, but with regard to prevention, all preventive measures have meant that we have been able to flatten the curve, and we are not, or we don't feel desperate. We know that the government is there fighting against this, and I think we're all on the same page in the country, the people, political parties. And why am I saying this? Because when are we going to vaccinate? How quickly amongst all of us? And when are we going to attain herd immunity? I think that this is a global matter. is not a regional or individual matter. It is a global matter. We're going to have a sanitary or health passport to be able to travel. I don't think this is something that will depend on any individual country. This is going to exist. We're going to have this. I think that we're headed into a new world. Well, Ambassador Sanders is right. We've blown up our economies. We can't depend on the old systems anymore. The state or states are going into debt to be able to finance these vaccines. COVAX is not enough. We'd have to have 100 COVAX initiatives to be able to have an appropriate response. So careful. When we talk about this, we need to be realistic. We need to be pragmatic. There is an issue of a state. There's an issue of markets. But also, I would call your attention to something. Not everything's terrible. Not everything's bad. Careful. Science has just exponentially leaped forward. It's at the speed of light in 1 year. So also we have to control ourselves when we're criticizing this. Not everything is a disaster. Not everything. We have public and private financing because the states have invested in pharmaceutical companies to incentivize them to undertake research and development of the vaccine. So in the end, what is fundamental is how do we get out of here? How do we overcome this? All of us. The life of a citizen in that place or the other place have the same value. I was reading the New York Times today, and we see there are asymmetries here in the United States. There are states in the United States where they're going very quickly and others where it's going very slowly. And each country handles it as they see fit. Examples. No. The path is clear. Yes. As Raimundo said, and he's right, this is an appeal, but it's teaching us something very important. Each one alone, we will not go forward. We will not be able to go down that path. What we'll have to do is strengthen international organizations that have the capacity to be effective, to provide a response. And then states will have to coordinate in a better way, have a higher level of coordination. I repeat, except for Canada, which we appreciate so much because of their exemplary conduct. They are a generous country. They are generous to countries like my country, but not all countries are generous. Many countries are individualistic, they're selfish. And who am I to criticize a country because they want to save their own people? That's why I thought that calling our attention to this has been very important. I thought that this was a timely really moment to do so because of what's going on in history, our behavior as human beings. And can we find the best in ourselves? It's like when we come through a crisis, a war or a genocide, and after those tragedies, we see what comes out in people, which is the best in them. I'm quite pragmatic, and I believe that in today's world where we have the state and the market exist and are working, we need to have a path that allows for balance between them. That's what I wanted to say. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ambassador Abdallah. We now have Ambassador De Silla from Peru. You're recognized, sir. Good morning, everyone. First of all, we wanted to thank the delegation of Trinidad and Tobago and other countries from CARICOM for presenting this draft resolution, for having brought this to the attention of the Permanent Council. This is a transcendental issue. This is an issue that affects all of us to a greater or lesser extent. There is practically no country in the world, and there are none in the region, that have not been seriously affected by this pandemic. For this reason, the fact that the Permanent Council is addressing this issue, we think this is a wonderful initiative, and that is why we have supported it from the outset. I wanted to highlight 2 or 3 things in this resolution. Some of them have been mentioned by other colleagues. This is the concept of global or worldwide public goods. Vaccines should be global public goods. We have been supporting this concept in the relevant fora, and we want to do this once again here, given that we are addressing the topic here. We believe that this is the best way to actually handle the issue of the vaccine. We are participating in the WHO initiative, the COVAX facility. We are involved in this process to obtain vaccines and be able to inject or give these vaccines to our people. We like to highlight solidarity, the importance of solidarity. Solidarity needs to be shown in its broadest sense to show that together we can overcome this worldwide crisis through cooperation amongst countries. That is why, Chair, we support and we have supported from the outset this resolution. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ambassador De Silla. Ambassador Salinas from Chile has the floor.
Creo que perdió conexión.
Did the ambassador lose his connection? Ambassador Salinas, please release your mic and ask for the floor once again, says the technician.
Está en línea el embajador Salinas.
Is Ambassador Salinas there? Yes, says the technician. I gave him the floor, but we cannot see him on the screen.
Embajador Salinas, sí.
Ambassador Salinas, please refresh.
Tenemos conexión, Fernando.
Fernando? Is he connected? He is on the list. I gave him the floor, but for some reason he is not on the screen, says the technician. While we're resolving this technical issue, Fernando, have we resolved the issue? Asked the chair. Let's give the floor to the delegate of the European Union. Excuse me, says the Assistant Secretary General. Nicaragua has asked for the floor, says the Assistant Secretary General. Excuse me, Ambassador, I didn't see Nicaragua on the list. The chair says we are going to give the floor now to Nicaragua, and I apologize, I had not seen Nicaragua on the list. Thank you, Chair. First of all, the delegation of Nicaragua would like to thank the distinguished ambassador from Antigua and Barbuda for his presentation, as well as St. Vincent and the Grenadines and Trinidad and Tobago, as well as Argentina, Mexico, for their wonderful presentations. We'd like to thank all the colleagues who have spoken. We think it's important to highlight the fact that as an organization we have reached a consensus on such an important resolution, and we have overcome the issue of the United States, for example, imposing its interventionist will on us. I want to speak about other issues that are not just political issues. I want to talk about political will and also invoke international solidarity that will allow us to join together and provide access to developing countries in an equitable way, to the extent that we vaccinate the countries of, or we vaccinate the peoples of all countries. This will allow us to fight the virus. And this will allow for international trade, and our economies can flourish. This resolution is important, and we are going to have to vaccinate at a worldwide level, because if not, we will have horrible unemployment like we've never seen in countries, as well as a marked increase in poverty. There's also the increase in asylum seekers that could result from this. And what new public policies are we going to design to stop the collapse of health services in our country? I think we need to undertake this in a serious way and revise our health services and systems so that they are accessible for everyone, without thinking or not basing this on economic or financial reasons, rather based on humanitarian reasons. I think that this has raised many issues, and many countries have started vaccinating their people. There have been efforts by laboratories and companies to make this possible. And we know that there is a question of human capacity to be able to address the pandemic. But the important thing is to change our mentality, have a mentality that is in solidarity with developing countries so that they can have access to the vaccines. That is what we want, this framework of international solidarity that allows our countries to access the vaccine. Nicaragua is participating in the COVAX facility, and we are waiting for vaccines to arrive soon. For these reasons, Nicaragua co-sponsored this important resolution. And once again, we thank the organization for the step forward, and we hope we can continue to analyze and make headway on this important issue. Thank you very much to Ambassador Alvarado. And now we do have Ambassador Salinas online.
No, embajadora, no entra en pantalla.
I'm sorry, we cannot see him, says the technician. I see that the delegate of Chile has asked for the floor. Felipe Sayes has asked for the floor. How are you? Can you hear me? The interpreter apologizes, but it's very difficult to hear the ambassador. Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your patience. First of all, I'm very thankful for this important resolution. I'd like to thank CARICOM. I thank Ambassador Spencer. I'm sorry, says the technician. We cannot hear you. You are cutting off and cutting in and out. Can you hear me, says the ambassador. We cannot hear you, Ambassador. The technician asked if the ambassador has anything else on. Are the speakers on too loud, says the technician. Do you have a headset, asks the technician. Can you see the icon on this that says speaker? Why don't you click on that? We might be able to hear you better. The volume, the one in red, says the technician. Is that better? Asks the ambassador. Well, I'm going to start again. Again, the interpreter apologizes, but it's very difficult to hear the ambassador, but I will interpret what I can understand. I want to thank CARICOM for this important resolution that it presented. I want to also acknowledge the work that's been done by Ambassador Sanders and Spencer. They very deftly led up an inclusive negotiation on the draft resolution, and we appreciate this. Chile is also very happy that we reach a consensus on this issue. This resolution was negotiated in the spirit of cooperation and solidarity that we believe should prevail with regard to access to the vaccine. The access must be timely and equitable. Chile has a massive vaccination and immunization program that it's implementing. It is based on the principle of equity and equality. More than 2 million people have been vaccinated to date. Chair, we reiterate our thanks to CARICOM for this initiative and for the hemispheric initiative on this subject. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ambassador Salinas. Today, Internet has not really been with us, but I appreciate your flexibility. It is true. We should be so happy the fact that we have reached a consensus on this resolution, the first one of the year. But of course, we have other items on the agenda. So I would ask everyone to be brief. We now have observer states that would like to speak. I'd like to give the floor to the delegate of the European Union first. You are recognized, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Chair of the Permanent Council, Your Excellency Ambassador Roquebert, Secretary General of the OAS, Mr. Luis Almagro, distinguished permanent representatives and fellow permanent observers. I wish to first thank the Chair and the Permanent Council for the opportunity to take the floor today on such an important topic affecting us all. It is an honour for me to be representing the EU Permanent Observer Mission here today, particularly alongside my EU Member States permanent observers. We welcome today's discussion on the proposed resolution on the equitable distribution of COVID-19 vaccines. To this end, please allow me to highlight the EU's global cooperation and solidarity to fight effectively the COVID-19 pandemic, including our part in supporting the equitable distribution of vaccines. Through Team Europe, the EU and its member states have mobilized a global recovery package of 38.5 billion euros to help our partners across the world address the immediate health emergency and humanitarian needs, to strengthen health systems and support the economic recovery and social protection. These efforts are underway in many countries in the Latin America and Caribbean, to which the EU is providing around 1.2 billion euros. But we know that to win the battle against this pandemic, immunization needs to be accessible to all across the globe. No one will be safe until everyone is safe, as many speakers here today have said. This is why we believe COVAX is the best vehicle for delivering on international vaccine solidarity, and we welcome many of the member states here who have joined or are planning to join the facility. To date, Team Europe has announced over 850 million euros for the COVAX facility to help secure 2 billion vaccines for 92 low and middle income countries by the end of the year, and to support global efforts to make COVID-19 vaccines a global public good. As many of you know, the EU has been active since the early stages of the pandemic. In May 2020, we hosted with our partners an international coronavirus global response pledging conference to kickstart global cooperation. The EU is also the co-founder of the ACT Accelerator, together with France and the World Health Organization, of which vaccines are one of its 4 pillars, with each pillar playing a vital role in the overall effort in the fight against the pandemic. In parallel, the European Commission is working on setting up a EU mechanism to facilitate the reselling or donation of vaccines to other countries procured by member states through the EU's advanced purchase agreements. Sharing vaccines with partners is not only about international solidarity, but it's in all our interest to help break the vicious circle of new mutations and to reduce the health risk for all. So the EU will continue to support health system strengthening and universal health coverage in partner countries, to roll out of vaccines, because at the end of the day, everyone who needs a vaccine should get one. Madam Chair, I would like to close by saying that we appreciate the quality of our cooperation with the OAS and the member states of this body, even more so during these challenging times. Thank you once again for the opportunity to exchange views on this subject, and we look forward to further exchanges on other subjects of mutual interest. Thank you.
Gracias, embajador Curtis. Tiene la palabra la embajadora de Blanche de...
Ambassador de la Blanche has the floor. The Ambassador of France. Better? Chair, Secretary General, Assistant Secretary General, allow me first of all to congratulate you, Maria, on the assumption of your chairmanship of the Permanent Council. With your energy and your diplomatic talent, I know your work will be fruitful and useful. And I think the best example is the resolution that was adopted today. I also would like to thank those who have taken the initiative on the subject of today and the draft resolution. Ambassador Philip Spencer of Trinidad and Tobago, Ambassador Cordero from Honduras. As was also pointed out, the UN Security Council today is also discussing this subject because this is a priority on the worldwide agenda. Chair, today's meeting gives us the occasion to evoke international solidarity in the fight against COVID-19. And as this has been said, this solidarity will allow us to respond effectively to the crisis. France, since the beginning, has wanted the vaccine against COVID-19 to be a global public good. And I think it highlights the importance of multilateralism with the ACT Accelerator Initiative, which France has been a part of from the beginning. This initiative will allow us to give equitable access to vaccines against COVID through the COVAX facility. And this solidarity and equitable access to vaccines is at the heart of the charter that was adopted by the ACT Accelerator members on February the 9th. We are confronting a scarcity of vaccine, although the demands are very important. We must make efforts to encourage partnerships between businesses, between states, and philanthropic and private partnerships. The WHO needs to play an important role in those countries where they do not have the necessary expertise. For example, also COVAX, the COVAX facility has secured access to 2 billion doses of the vaccine for 191 countries that are part of COVAX, and of these 1.7 billion will be given to 92 countries of low and middle income, 10 of which are in this hemisphere. The COVAX mechanism is the most appropriate to ensure equitable allocation of vaccinations in the allocation system of the WHO. And I would like to highlight in that sense the important role played by PAHO, of which France is a participatory member. PAHO has continued to act with countries in the hemisphere to give an effective response to the crisis. Thanks to the efforts of Gavi and the WHO, we began to see the success of COVAX with the first doses of the vaccine. And the effectiveness and safety of the vaccines have been validated by the WHO. Pfizer and AstraZeneca vaccines will be delivered in 145 countries in the upcoming weeks. Now, as a supplement to its political support and financial support of the COVAX facility, the President of the Republic has said that we need to have supplemental contributions which will be implemented in partnership with COVAX along with European Union partners. Now, this would mean that we are proposing of giving developing countries pre-ordered doses as long as that country can administer them. Now, these discussions are now ongoing at the European Union to be able to implement this quickly. In conclusion, Chair, France has continued to actively engage in the efforts to have worldwide access and equitable access to the vaccines. This is a test of multilateralism, and this is what Uruguay said. Oh, we must be up to this task. Thank you, Chair.
Blanche, continúa la embajadora.
Thank you very much. Let me now recognize Ambassador Montoya. Let me first congratulate you for this initiative and this consensus. This is not the first time I have taken the floor to speak on behalf of an equitable, timely, and affordable access to the vaccine, and the understanding that the vaccine is indeed a global public good. We take note of the resolution in petitioning countries to take measures to ensure the equitable distribution of the vaccine. In this regard, I would like to share with you the progress that Spain has made vis-à-vis this commitment. Firstly, let me recognize the plan for solidarity in the distribution of the COVID-19 vaccine approved in January by the government to support broader access to individuals to contribute to a greater population across the globe. Our efforts will be led through the COVAX mechanism. Spain is also one of the co-leaders of ACT, an accelerator, and it has taken an important role in Spain in terms of the COVAX facility, working through Gavi to approve a donation of 58 million euros to ACT, as well as a number of other initiatives. Spain also is a member of the EU, and within the context of Global Team Europe is participating in the actions of the EU and the contributions to COVAX. As you know, Spain has firmly supported the inclusion of the countries of Latin America in the projects led by the EU. Recently, Spanish cooperation has defended at the OECD equal access as the primary challenge of the organization. This includes equitable universal access to vaccines in the efforts that we are engaging in as a country, but we are also working hand in hand with the EU and others to defend this position in our multilateral organizations, including international organizations and regional organizations, including both WHO and PAHO. We will continue to keep you abreast of the expansions and the work that we are doing in the future. Within the context of this commitment that is both pragmatic, but also one that comes from Spain on a note of solidarity and ethics with our brothers and sisters in Latin America and the Caribbean. Despite our own travails, we will continue to support access globally to the vaccine. I would lastly like to thank St. Vincent and the Grenadines, particularly on the remarks with regard to the situation of women. Spain, with its feminist policy, is very much in step with those remarks and agrees wholeheartedly. And we also would like to share with the Permanent Council and the member states a note of international solidarity to the multilateral response and our commitment to the process. Thank you very much. Let me now recognize the representative of Italy. Good morning, Madam Chair, Mr. Secretary General, Assistant Secretary General, colleagues. I have a few remarks that I'm going to read in English.
Allow me to share just a few words on the importance of this theme today from our point of view. Italy thanks the OAS for bringing this issue to attention and aligns itself fully with the statement of the European Union and our joint efforts as Team Europe. Our country, as you know, was at the beginning of this crisis, was among the hardest hit by the pandemic very early on, and we are extremely grateful for the solidarity we received by many of our partners, many of which in the Americas. And we did our best, and we continue to do our best to reciprocate that solidarity in many ways. Most importantly, since the very beginning, since March 2020, by promoting an international alliance for the COVID vaccine, by supporting the first conference on the financing of the global response to COVID-19 in partnership with the EU, and by contributing to the efforts of the World Health Organization, PAHO, Gavi, as well as the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Innovation, CEPI. And also by sustaining from the beginning the efforts of the ACT Access to COVID-19 Tools Accelerator. But in particular, in line with the theme and the topic of, very important topic of today, by supporting the initiatives to ensure fair and equitable access to vaccines. Above all, by financing the COVID facility through the Gavi Advanced Market Commitment. In fact, the promotion of health as a global public good and access to vaccines is one of the themes of the Italian presidency of the G20. And we will strive to keep the commitment of the international community strong on the entire health agenda, including in our multilateral work here at the OAS. I thank you again for this opportunity to share with you our views and our actions, and look forward to strengthening even more cooperation. Thank you.
Gracias, embajador.
Thank you very much, Ambassador DeSanti. Let me once again recognize the Ambassador of Trinidad and Tobago. Ambassador?
Chair, distinguished colleagues, Secretary General, Assistant Secretary General, it is a humbling honor for me to conclude our consideration of this item on today's order of business, the equitable distribution of COVID-19 vaccines. First, with commendations. Chair, distinguished colleagues, this process to arrive at consensus and the adoption of this resolution by acclamation included important contributions by several delegations. I wish first, however, to acknowledge and commend highly the delegation of Antigua and Barbuda, led by the Dean and most distinguished and experienced diplomat in our own CARICOM caucus, His Excellency Sir Ronald Sanders, and his delegation for their indefatigable efforts and display of expertise in the drafting of this resolution. We are all, as member states, deeply grateful and indebted. I must also commend the delegations of CARICOM for our display of collective, coordinated, and focused action to advance this initiative. There were also contributions to the final text of the resolution by the delegations of Brazil, Canada, Costa Rica, Ecuador, Guatemala, Honduras, Peru, the United States, and Uruguay. And so those delegations must be commended. Chair, as the chair of our Permanent Council, you have been excellent in creating the leadership and creating an environment that enabled us to pursue in an inclusive and integrative manner to achieve today's success. Congratulations to you. Deeply grateful. To the other co-sponsoring non-CARICOM delegations of Argentina, Dominican Republic, El Salvador, Mexico, Nicaragua, and Panama, we extend and express our deep appreciation, as well as to all other delegations who have supported this important expression of our collective political will. To our permanent observers who have continued throughout the process to express their interest, and for us in CARICOM, we would want to single out the permanent observer, delegation of India, we extend and express again, and the European Union, our appreciation. We must also express our appreciation to PAHO, whose presentations on the 27th of January to our Permanent Council provided the spark and led to the statement delivered by Ambassador Sanders, which served as the genesis for this for this resolution. Chair, among those to whom we extend appreciation, I must also highlight the work of the General Secretariat for the efforts and the diligence in ensuring that we had all of the 9 revisions of this draft resolution prepared and circulated. 9 revisions in just over 12 days. Thank you. In his New Year's statement as the incoming chairman of the Caribbean Community in January 2021, Dr. the Honorable Keith Rowley, Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, included as the first among his 3 priorities recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic, adopting collective, coordinated, and focused actions. Inspired, influenced, and instructed by that priority of the chairman of CARICOM, the CARICOM regional grouping of OAS member states has embraced the words of the United States National Youth Poet Laureate Amanda Gorman, and I quote, "Harm for none, harmony for all." Those words have characterized our approach to advancing and promoting our mutual interests as regional member states of CARICOM, and also here in our hemispheric relations with all member states of the OAS. It is our commitment to achieving harm for none and harmony for all that has enabled us as CARICOM member states to create the leadership that resulted in our adoption of this resolution today by acclamation. Now that collective regional advocacy by CARICOM has been adopted with wider consensus and by acclamation of this premier hemispheric international institution as the expressed will of the people and governments of the Americas, we must now proceed to convert our expressed will as member states from the words of this resolution into work on behalf of the people of our member states everywhere in our hemisphere. Chair, adoption of this resolution must now become action on this resolution. Our collective will to avoid inequity in the distribution of all available COVID-19 vaccines, so clearly expressed in the words of this resolution, must now become work that delivers real value in the interests of the lives and livelihoods of the people of the Americas. Only then would we have promoted and protected the most important human right for our people, the right to life. Only then would we have advanced the agenda for sustainable and integral development across the hemisphere amidst this COVID-19 pandemic. What is required now, Chair, is the collective, coordinated, and focused action called for by the chairman of CARICOM to recover from this COVID-19 pandemic. The collective, coordinated, and focused action must include OAS member states, permanent observers, and the General Secretariat in galvanized solidarity to implement the 6 mandates adopted in this resolution. As a single OAS team, we must now promote the equitable distribution of COVID-19 vaccines with vaccine makers, international financial institutions, PAHO, and the other institutions of the Inter-American system. Chair, distinguished colleagues, in conclusion, I wish to reiterate the appreciation of all 14 member states of the Caribbean community represented here at the OAS, for your solidarity and support with us in the adoption of this resolution to advance and promote the equitable distribution of COVID-19 vaccines so that together we may achieve, amidst this chilling, to use the term expressed by Ambassador Sanders on 27 January, harm for none and harmony for all. Congratulations to us all on the adoption of this important resolution, and I thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Spencer, for that valuable summary of this collective effort that brings us all together and commits us to the agreement that we have just approved. Having concluded this item on the agenda, we will now move to item 3. And this is in response to a request made by the delegation of the United States in note CP-INF 8849/21. We will proceed on that note with the election of a member of the Leo S. Rowe Pan American Fund Committee based on the provisions of Article 3 of its statutes and in view of the fact that the term of service of the distinguished delegation of St. Vincent and the Grenadines expired last December. Before offering the floor to the delegations for the presentations of nominations, I would ask the Secretariat to show a very brief introductory video that the team from the Department of Human Development, Education and Employment of the Executive Secretariat for Integral Development has shared with us with regard to the Leo S. Rowe Fund.
The Rowe Fund, a student loan program of the Organization of American States, was established more than 60 years ago through the will of the late Dr. Leo S. Rowe. Dr. Rowe was the director of the Pan American Union, which is the precursor of the Organization of American States. The Permanent Council of the organization is responsible for the administration of the fund through a committee consisting of a representative from the OAS Secretary General and 4 member state representatives. The social mission of the Rowe Fund is to grant interest-free loans to students from Latin America and Caribbean OAS member states. The loans help finance higher education or research at accredited institutions in the United States. At the same time, the Rowe Fund grants interest-bearing loans to staff members of the General Secretariat of the OAS. This supplementary financial aid covers just a portion of studies. The Rowe Fund's vision is to promote diversity and integration throughout the Americas, with the understanding that graduates will return to their countries of origin to apply the benefit of their training. Many loan beneficiaries have contributed to the social and economic development in the region by occupying key positions in their country's public sector, academia, the arts, and business. Dr. Rowe devoted the greater part of his life fostering understanding and integration in the Americas. He demonstrated a special interest in educating the youth of Latin America and the Caribbean, a legacy that continues through his last will and testament.
Muchas gracias al equipo de la
Thank you very much to Sandy for sharing this video with us. At this time, I now offer the floor to the delegations wishing to make nominations. Ambassador Yolande Smith of Grenada, you are recognized.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good morning, colleagues. Good morning to our Secretary General and Secretary General. The Permanent Mission of Grenada is pleased to nominate the Permanent Mission of St. Vincent and the Grenadines for re-election to the Leo Rowe Pan American Fund Committee for the period 2021 to 20. The Permanent Mission of Grenada, like sister permanent missions of the CARICOM Group, recognizes the importance of the committee advancing the vision of Dr. Leo S. Rowe, whose bequest from 7 decades ago continues to benefit students in Latin America and the Caribbean as they pursue higher education in the United States. That's the video. Always responsive to the needs of its beneficiaries, was able to provide financial support to students adversely affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. The committee continues to provide oversight of the fund's activities as it fulfills its role in fostering cultural diversity, friendship, and communication among the peoples of the Americas. I thank you, Chair. And just as a side note, apart from my substantial reason for taking the floor, I want to congratulate you on the presidency and to pledge my delegation's support during your tenure. I thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Smith. Let me now offer the floor to Ambassador Elisa Ruiz Diaz of Paraguay. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. The mission of Paraguay supports the re-election of St. Vincent and the Grenadines for the period 2021 to 2024. I would like to highlight the fast-paced implementation of the scholarship that was rolled out in the context of the COVID-19. The Rowe Fund was able to provide over $1 million to citizens of over 21 countries from the member states in terms of scholarship and emergency support. Many students continue to be hard hit by the pandemic, but are nonetheless determined and committed to concluding their studies. Thanks to the Rowe Fund and the request for additional funding, they have been able to continue to contribute to the students of the Americas. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you, Ambassador Ruiz Diaz. Let me recognize the United States.
Presidente de Estados Unidos creo que se retiró de palabra.
Bueno, en nombre entonces de...
Very well, then seeing no objections on behalf of the Permanent Council, we congratulate the permanent mission of the delegation of St. Vincent and the Grenadines in the person of Ambassador Luann Grilling-Gerlich on her re-election as a member of the Leo S. Rowe Pan-American Fund Committee. Next, let me recognize the Ambassador of St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Gracias, Presidenta. Mi intervención va a ser muy corta.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to be very brief.
Of St. Vincent and the Grenadines expresses its gratitude to the Chair of the Permanent Council for including this item on the agenda. We thank the Permanent Mission of Grenada for advancing the nomination of our mission on behalf of the CARICOM group of ambassadors, to whom gratitude is equally extended. We thank the Permanent Mission of Paraguay in the person of its distinguished permanent representative for supporting the nomination and acknowledge the support of this Permanent Council for accepting it. The Permanent Mission of St. Vincent and the Grenadines is pleased to have been re-elected as a member of the Leo Rowe Fund Committee in service to the people of our hemisphere, whose continued holistic development we seek to promote along with our CARICOM counterparts in all fora. Chair, for over 70 years, the fund has successfully provided financial aid to thousands of students in facilitate the completion of their studies at universities in the United States. Dr. Leo S. Rowe was the ex-Director General of the Pan American Union from 1920 until his sudden death in 1946. He demonstrated special interest in the education of Latin American youth, whom he assisted throughout his lifetime, and to whom he donated most of his assets in his will. Now, students from the Caribbean also benefit from the benevolence of Dr. Leo S. Rowe. I invite representatives of OAS member states to promote this program among your citizens and to support the committee's efforts to continue providing an emergency scholarship along with the interest-free loan in response to the financial hardship imposed on students by the COVID-19 pandemic. Gracias, Señora Presidenta.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Ambassador Gilchrist. The Permanent Council appreciates and would like to thank you for your dedication to this task. I'd like to give the floor to Guatemala now. Thank you, Chair. I think I got ahead of myself. I asked for the floor with regard to item 4 of the order of business, which I think we're going to address now, but perhaps there are other requests for the floor. I think Ambassador Fiallo is asking for the floor.
El embajador Fiallo.
Ambassador Fiallo from the Dominican Republic, and I think the United States also wants to refer to this item. Thank you, Chair. We would like to thank the permanent mission of St. Vincent and Grenadines for their leadership and their work at the Leo Rowe Fund, and we wish them success, continued success. We recognize the work that the members of the committee are doing, as well as the staff that works there, so that men and women can have loans to be able to improve their education and ensure themselves good jobs, as well as help the development of their countries. We see that all of them have done everything possible so that the loan recipients were able to continue to survive during this COVID-19 pandemic. We wanted to thank Emilia Sevillanos, especially and her staff, for her work with the loan beneficiaries this year. We also want to applaud the good offices of the donors. We hope that these will be increased, as well as we'll have more donations so that more students can take advantage of the loans that are provided through the fund. Thank you. Thank you, Ambassador Fiallo. The United States is requesting the floor. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The United States is proud of Mr. Rowe's legacy, and we would like to thank and congratulate St. Vincent and the Grenadines and Ambassador Gilchrist for the willingness to lead the fund for another term. The leadership of St. Vincent and the Grenadines as chair the last few years has greatly contributed to the Rowe Fund's goal to assist with the educational and social advancement of the region, thus fulfilling Dr. Rowe's vision. Since its inception, the Rowe Fund has granted almost 9,000 loans to citizens of Latin America and the Caribbean, as well as to staff members of the OAS as an institution. My delegation would like to take this opportunity to also thank the efforts of the members of the Rowe Fund Committee and the OAS staff who work so hard to make sure the fund runs efficiently and continues to grow. We can see that Dr. Rowe's generosity and vision have touched thousands and will continue to make a positive difference in the education and lives of those who pursue the fund he created. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Frieden. I offer the floor now to the delegation of Trinidad and Tobago.
Madam Chair, I take the floor on behalf of the member delegations of the Caribbean community to express our congratulations to the permanent mission of St. Vincent and the Grenadines and to the permanent representative, Her Excellency Luan Gilchrist, on her re-election to chair the Leo Rowe Fund Committee. In doing so, We acknowledge the importance that we must continue to place on honoring the leadership and legacy of Dr. Leo Rowe in the establishment of this fund, and we acknowledge the important role it has played in the development of our human talent in our region, CARICOM. We also wish to join with others in expressing our best wishes to Ambassador Gilchrist for a successful tenure over the next few years. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Ambassador Spencer. I offer the floor now to the delegation of Nicaragua.
Embajador Alvarado, si puede.
Ambassador Alvarado. Thank you, Chair. The delegation of Nicaragua is thrilled to see Ambassador Gilchrist re-elected as the chair of the Leo S. Rowe Fund Committee. We think it's extremely important that St. Vincent and the Grenadines is involved in this. We also want to recognize the work of Ms. Sevillano and all the members of the Fund Committee, the efforts made to benefit youth in our hemisphere. This altruistic idea of Mr. Leo Rowe lasts to our day, thanks to the laudable work done by the members of the Fund Committee. So thank you, and again, congratulations to Ambassador Luann Gilchrist. Thank you, Ambassador Alvarado. Ambassador Gilchrist, have you asked for the floor? You have the floor, madam.
Ahora, San Vicente y las Granadinas tiene la palabra.
Sit in the Grenadines.
Mil disculpas.
Thank you, Chair. I am sorry to ask for the floor again. I apologize. I wanted to just present a very short video, if you would allow me. These are some testimonials that I'd like you to hear.
¿Qué pasó? No lo quise.
Being in this pandemic has made it incredibly difficult to be able to find a job to pay for my school expenses, groceries, bills, and even other expenses. But this Rose Scholarship has opened up the way where I could pay for these things and have the peace of mind that they are being taken care of, whereas before I was left wondering.
Being awarded this scholarship and the non-interest loan helped me greatly by reducing my family's financial burden upon our household. And I believe that this assistance will only push me towards my degree and my dreams of having a successful career, no matter what the uncertainty of the current situation is.
The Rowe Fund Emergency Scholarship was crucial to keep things afloat. It allowed me to enroll to my second year. Otherwise, I would be back in my country with an incomplete degree, which I had already spent so much time and effort in. I'm deeply grateful for this help.
This pandemic has affected me emotionally and financially. First, emotionally because I'm away from my family, and financially because I was working in the university and they had to close it. And also for this year, they didn't offer the financial aid for international students. Thanks to the Rowe Fund Emergency Scholarship and interest-free loan, I will be able to complete my master in the United States.
If there are no further requests for the floor, I would suggest that the Permanent Council take note of this important video and its testimonials, as well as the comments and observations made by delegations. If there are no objections, it is so agreed. Agreed. Let's proceed to item 4 on our order of business. Consideration of draft resolution, date of the third meeting of the subsidiary technical working group on police management of the MISPA, convened pursuant to resolution AG Res 2950 L-O/20, agreed to the Committee on Hemispheric Security on January 28, 2021, and submitted to the consideration of the Permanent Council through note CP/Doc 5671/21, signed by Ambassador Rita Claviere de Scioli, Permanent Representative of Guatemala and Chair of the Committee on Hemispheric Security. Thus, it is a pleasure to offer the floor to the distinguished chair of that committee for the presentation of this document. Ambassador Claviere de Scioli, you have the floor, madam. Thank you, Chair, colleagues, Secretary General Magro, Assistant Secretary General Mendez. Before I address this item, I'd like to congratulate Ambassador Gilchrist for her re-election, and I would like to highlight the work of Ms. Sevillano and others at that fund. Now I'd like to address this item. On behalf of the Committee on Hemispheric Security, I'd like to present draft resolution entitled Date of the Third Meeting of the Subsidiary Technical Working Group on Police Management of the MISPA Process, convened under Resolution AG Res 2950 parentheses L-0/20, which also is attached to CP Doc 5671/21. Through the approval of this document, the Permanent Council would be establishing the 18th and 19th of March of 2021 as the date for the third meeting of the Subsidiary Technical Working Group on Police Management to be convened virtually. Chair, this draft resolution was agreed to by the committee on 28 January last and is now being submitted to the consideration of the Permanent Council. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ambassador Claviere de Scioli, for that presentation. I'd like to know whether delegations would agree to approve this draft resolution. Since there are no comments thereon, excuse me. Chile is asking for the floor. I'm sorry, I don't see the request, says the chair. I offer the floor to the delegation of Chile. Excuse me, it was Ecuador that asked for the floor, says the technician.
Creo que nos estamos adelantando los puntos.
I think we're getting ahead of ourselves. Since there are no comments on this item, then this resolution has been approved. The next item on our order of business is the consideration of the convening of the 11th meeting of Ministers of Justice and other ministers or attorneys general of the Americas, REMJA 11 CP Doc 5672/21, presented by the delegation of Ecuador in keeping with the fifth document of Washington and in keeping with the mandate corresponding to Resolution 2958 of the General Assembly. For the presentation of this draft resolution that is being considered, I have the pleasure of offering the floor to Ambassador Carlos Jativa, Permanent Representative of Ecuador. Ambassador Jativa, you have the floor, sir. Thank you very much, Chair. Indeed, I asked for the floor to refer to the last item, actually. But if you would allow me, I would like to address the item we just approved, if you will allow me. The subsidiary technical working group on police management was created in the third meeting of MISPA 3, which took place in Trinidad and Tobago in 2011, in order to follow up on the implementation of the Port Spain recommendations with regard to police management. And the first meeting of the group was at MISPA 4 in Colombia. And so the technical group follows up on high-level recommendations for police management and cooperation. The second meeting of the group took place in Peru in April 2015 with the participation of national directors of police from member states and observer states. And the recommendations made are, for example, cooperation in hemisphere for police training, transformations on a social level, and new trends in criminality in the Americas, and also community policing and preventing crime. And then in MISPA 7, which took place in Ecuador, my country was elected to be the chair of this technical working group. Once the Permanent Council fixed the date for this March, we have a concept note that is being circulated. It's being prepared by the Ministry of National Security of my country. This important meeting will be presided by Commander General of the Police, Patricio Carrillo, and will include the discussion and analysis of recommendations in keeping with the third axis of work that has to do with social transformation and new trends in violence and criminality in the Americas, cybercrime, human trafficking, and trafficking of minors. These issues refer to new modalities and dynamics of crime which have an impact on our peace and security in the hemisphere. Because we have some of the highest rates of violence and crime in the world. This affects the effective enjoyment of human rights, and so we need collaboration between our states. Our nation hopes to have the support of all member states in this regard. Thank you very much, Chair. And when you would like to give me the floor again, I can then discuss REMJA. Yes, Ambassador Khativa. I'm sorry. I understood that you had asked for the floor and then withdrawn the request because you just wanted to address this item. Yes, my mistake. I understand the confusion, but if you would allow me, REMJA is the hemispheric fora for justice and international judicial cooperation, which brings together the ministers of justice and attorneys general of the member states of the OAS, those who have responsibilities in these fields. This cooperation process at a hemispheric level has been going on for many years, and it is governed by the Washington document, which provides that the General Assembly and by default the Permanent Council as well convene a formal meeting of REMJA, and that it decides on the date and where this will take place. On 15 November 2019, the REMJA Secretariat distributed to all delegations the note in which we offered to actually host the meeting of REMJA 11. The celebration of this meeting was provided for or should have happened last year under our General Prosecutor. It was not possible to have this meeting due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Although the pandemic is ongoing, given the importance of this meeting and taking into account AgRes 2958, Ecuador has reiterated its willingness and its commitment to host REMSA 11 in May of this year in a virtual manner with the support of the Technical Secretariat in the Judicial Cooperation Office. The virtual meeting can take place because we have a lot of experience in this, and I believe that with limited resources we will be able to hold this important ministerial meeting. And so in this sense, and to begin the process, I invite member states to approve the draft resolution that my delegation has submitted for the Permanent Council's consideration. Thank you. Thank you, Ambassador Khativa, for that presentation. I'd like to consult with delegations whether we can approve this draft resolution. Are there any requests for the floor? As there are no requests for the floor, this draft resolution, document CP Doc 5672/21, is approved. Approved. Item 6 on our order of business, approval of the minutes of Permanent Council meetings. Acta 2250 from special session that took place on October 15, 2019. Acta 2251 of the special meeting that took place on October 17, 2019. Acta 2252 from the special meeting of October 23, 2019. Acta 2253 of the special meeting of October 24, 2019. Acta 2254 of the regular meeting of October 30th, 2019. Acta 2255 of the special meeting of November 4th, 2019. Acta 2256 of the regular meeting of November 6, 2019. Acta 2257 of the joint meeting of the Permanent Council and CD that took place on November 6, 2019. Acta 2258 of the special meeting that took place on November 12, 2019, and Acta 2259 of the regular meeting of November 20, 2019. If there are no comments, no requests for the floor, the minutes that I've just read out are approved. Approved. Now, other business. Esteemed colleagues, now that we have wrapped up our order of business for this meeting, I'd like to offer the floor to those delegations who have any other business that they would like to mention. Ecuador. Ambassador Khativa, you have the floor, sir. Thank you very much, Chair. I apologize for asking the floor once again. I need to comply with my duty to share with you the sad death of Dr. Gustavo Nujarano. He was our president and held other important positions in our country. Dr. Noboa studied law and political science at the Catholic University in Guayaquil. He has a degree and and in law. He was a professor. He was also a dean and a vice dean of that university. He was later that university's president. He was the president of the Interinstitutional Committee on Higher Education, the Committee on Technology and Science of Polytechnical Universities. He was also the president of a private university in Guayaquil, Florida Atlantic University. He contributed to the peace negotiations that took place in Brasilia to settle the differences we had with Brazil. In 1998, he was elected vice president of the Republic, and then later, on 22 January, he became president. During his term, he consolidated the system of dollarization in our country to be able to return confidence to our banking and financial system. He also promoted many important social causes. Ecuador has lost a great statesman who loved his country, who loved our universities and his family. His work and his great contributions, we will always remember them. And it is only fair that we remember Dr. Noboa. And I had the pleasure of meeting him. He was a great statesman, a Democrat, and I was able to work with him in the foreign service of my country. And Lenin Moreno has declared 3 days of mourning, and may he rest in peace. Thank you, Chair. Esteemed Ambassador Khativav, on behalf of the Permanent Council, we would like to express our most sincere condolences to your mission and to the people and government of Ecuador on the passing of Dr. Noboa, a great educator and a statesman. Now, I would ask everyone to please honor a moment of silence in his honor. Thank you very much. I offer the floor to Costa Rica. Thank you. Good morning, Chair, distinguished ambassadors, Secretary General, Assistant Secretary General, distinguished delegates. I have the honor on behalf of the delegation of Belize, Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua, Panama, and the Dominican Republic, members of the regional group of the SICA group. Now, I am sad to tell you, of course, that we are very, very upset about the death of Mr. de Zelaya. He was the Assistant Secretary General of the OAS from 1975 to 1980. He held that position and he had previously been a permanent representative from his country to the OAS. His fruitful life as a diplomat and a politician enriched important processes for the hemisphere, such as his participation in the negotiations of the Inter-American Convention for the Protection of Human Rights of 1969, and in the peace process in Central America. This homage helps us to reflect on the importance and the commitment we all have with the organization and the inhabitants of our hemisphere. We express our sincere condolences to Ambassador Zelaya Coronado's family and his friends. We also want to refer to the former president of Argentina, Carlos Menem, and also express Sika's condolences to his family and to the government and people of Argentina. We regret the passing of Alvaro Novoa also, and express the condolences of the regional group to the family and people of Ecuador. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me now recognize the Ambassador of Guatemala. On behalf of Guatemala, I thank the chair. On behalf of Guatemala, I thank the chair for recognizing and giving a place here to the passing on December 20th of 2020 of Ambassador Jorge Luis Zelaya Coronado, who I had the honor of meeting and who was a good friend of my father's and of my family. I recognize the expressions that have been made by the member states and permanent observers with regard to his passing. I am particularly grateful to the regional group SICA for their words of condolences and their remembrances of our distinguished politician. Let me note that history is not based solely on the passage of time. History is based on those who with their lives serve as an example of change, struggle, and leave a legacy behind. End quote. Undoubtedly, the ambassador who has passed clearly leaves a legacy behind in which he has honored multilateralism, his country, and his family, particularly working on behalf of the vastness of the Americas, as he called them. The ambassador further developed and engaged in important posts and played important roles throughout the recent history of Guatemala and across the region. He was also a teacher at the University of San Carlos, vice chair and president of the Congress of Guatemala. He suffered in exile. He was an ambassador to the OAS. He was an ambassador to the United States and also served as Assistant Secretary General, as has been noted, of the OAS. He was deeply committed to the organization and pledged his allegiance to the inter-American system. He also called himself a Democrat throughout his life. He published a book on his experiences as a Guatemalan diplomat, which is considered to this date a very important contribution to a better understanding of the history of the second half of the 20th century in our country, to which we place particular recognition to the work with the OAS, not just as Assistant Secretary General, but also during his time as chair of the Permanent Council. He formed part of the Legal Affairs Department as well as working with the Administrative Tribunal. He also served as Executive Secretary for Education, Science, and Culture, where he promoted respect and support for programs focusing on youth across the region, with an accent particularly on poorer youth. He donated documents and publications from his private library to the Colon Library of the OAS. Throughout his career, he focused on youth as our future and with a keen understanding of their moral, intellectual, and physical ability to carry forth humankind. Ambassador Zelaya also served as a Guatemalan representative in an array of areas, including the signing of the Inter-American Convention on Human Rights of 1969, and also forms part of the agreement within the Central American region on that topic. He also worked on topics of emergency and a number of others that help to ensure support on an emergency basis for countries facing natural disasters and other types of emergencies across the region. Madam Chair, let me note that as Assistant Secretary General, he said, I am noting to date the departure from this position, having served America, believing in the legal equality of all states, and having served in that same condition. There has never been me a spirit of differentiation, whether it is military, political, legal, or of any other nature, to distinguish or discriminate between or among any individual coming to my office in an official post or position. I leave satisfied and content that I have served my nation and the Americas, and end quote. Let me note that we in Guatemala will always remember him as he has just described himself. Let me also send our condolences to Ecuador and to SICA as for the loss, as well as the Republic of Argentina for the passing of their former president, Carlos Saúl Menem. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you, Ambassador Claverie. Let me recognize Ambassador Spencer of Trinidad and Tobago.
Chair, I take the floor on this occasion on behalf of the 14 member delegations of the Caribbean community to join with other delegations in expressing our deepest and sincerest condolences to the delegations of Argentina, Ecuador, and Guatemala on the passing of their distinguished sons. In the case of Argentina, we join in paying homage to the former president, Carlos Menem. In the case of Ecuador, we join in solidarity and at this moment of sadness with the citizens and the delegation of Ecuador on the passing of former President Gustavo José Joaquín Noboa. And we also, of course, join with the delegation, with other delegations in expressing to the delegation of Guatemala our deepest condolences on the passing of clearly a true distinguished diplomat and leader in our hemisphere, Ambassador Jorge Luis Zelaya Coronado. May they all rest in peace. And again, we extend our deepest condolences and solidarity to the people and governments of Argentina, Ecuador, and Guatemala. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ambassador Philip Spencer. There being no further requests to speak, there being no further requests for the floor, but before adjourning, I would also, on behalf of the chair of the Permanent Council, and I believe I speak on behalf of everyone, that we hope Ambassador Ordóñez of Colombia will recover soon and return to the fold here on the Permanent Council. On that note, we stand adjourned.